Well, first off, I work for the Texas Tribune, which is a politics and policy website, and a large part of what we do revolves around data. So open government is huge to us. We routinely file open records requests, for example, to get the salaries of every state official, state employee. We use it to figure out where prisoners are. We use it to track how much the governor's office is spending on travel as he runs for president. So really, pretty much everything we do day in and day out revolves around transparency and open government, and working our tails off to make sure that the information that state agencies hold dear to them is accessible to us and therefore is available to the public, to our readers. In Texas, in recent years, there have been more efforts toward transparency. That said, at the end of the day, we really still largely battle to get information. Agencies often hide behind sending our request to the Attorney General's office, knowing that, then at least they have another 60 days before we can get that information if the AG rules in our favor, which often the AG doesn't. Inside the governor's office, there is not a very good records retention policy. They're able to delete emails after 2 weeks. They rarely keep a written record. So it's an incredible challenge for reporters trying to get any kind of paper trail because they can eliminate those documents so readily. I think about 10 years ago when I first started my journalism career, it was very difficult to get information. It remains that way, but over time you're starting to see lawmakers and agencies put a premium on access to public information. They're priding themselves on how well their agencies put data online. You really have seen a shift in the last 2 to 3 years with agencies sort of starting to get their heads around, okay, the open records requests aren't going to stop. How can we really, make this easier on us instead of us having to do all this paperwork by just putting this information online readily? There have been groups of journalists that have gotten together and have actually, pushed for the legislature to provide more lenient rules. There has been an effort. There was a SHIELD law that passed a couple of legislative sessions ago, so finally there is at least a SHIELD law here in Texas. But I would say, consistently we just push and push and push. And I think, the more that we put records online, the more that we put what we can get online, we pressure them, and our readers then pressure them to turn it over. I wouldn't say we've become sort of big public advocates, but at the same time, when documents aren't turned over that we believe should be turned over, we write stories about it. We write stories about why we can't provide certain, documents, certain sources to the public, to our readers. And I think, that creates an environment where readers want to know why they can't get it, and then lawmakers, want to respond to their readers. I think the public generally knows very little about what they can or can't get access to. For example, take Governor Rick Perry. He's been running for president, and he's had a slew of security forces with him, state troopers with him, Texas state troopers. And those individuals are paid for by taxpayer dollars. Well, we filed all kinds of open records requests to find out, how much they were spending and what they were doing and why all these state forces, were out on the trail with Perry. And we largely could not get that information because they said it was a security risk to turn it over. So I don't think the public would have any idea that, basic information on how taxpayer dollars are being spent is inaccessible to them. What you often find is that reporters file a barrage of open records requests with, a state agency, and the state agency balks and, doesn't want to help, sends your request immediately to the AG for an opinion. I've found that the better my relationship is with those people, the more likely I am to get that information. I've also found that trying to circumvent the Attorney General's office by, filing a request and then following it up with a phone call saying, look, I really want to avoid at all costs, this getting tied up in litigation. Tell me what I can and can't get under the law. Tell me how I can avoid getting this tangled up. Tell me what legally I'm entitled to. Let's have a conversation. Let's see if I can amend my request to get this information in a timely fashion. I think, the better you know the law, the better you know those characters, the more likely you are to get your information in any kind of a timely fashion. I also have found that building close relationships in the AG's office means I can then call them and say, look, this agency is pushing back on a request of mine. What am I entitled to? How would you, direct me to go about this? And I think in some ways being well sourced on that side of the aisle is also helpful. So definitely get in with these agencies, meet them, go out to lunch, go out to coffee, once they see you as a real human being as opposed to sort of a scary journalist who's trying to get them and their bosses in trouble, they're far more likely to be reasonable and to help you.